Hey everyone, Rico Berg, Realtor with BRIDGEWELL Real Estate Group here in Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. And today I've brought on Jon Chan from RBC just to talk about appraisals and the financing side of things, just to help you guys get a better understanding of what appraisals are, how they work, and what you should be aware of. So Jon, introduce yourself.
Hi, it's Jon Chan from the Royal Bank, mortgage specialist, helping our clients with their home financing needs and advice that they deserve.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you on today. I know you know a lot about pre-sales, but appraisals don't always just relate to pre-sales. They happen in a regular resale situation too. So I think there's a lot of confusion and clarity that can be given regarding appraisals. So can we just start with what is an appraisal, why the lender wants it, just those basics, who, what, where, when, why?
Sure, you're absolutely right. The term, maybe appraisal, inspection, they all seem to be very interchangeable, but they're actually quite different.
Definitely.
So first off, an inspection checks for any deficiencies, quantifying the property if there's any problems, and then seeing, hey, how much will it cost to remediate those points?
Right.
So an appraiser, on the other hand, sees what the value of the property looks like. This is important because our mortgage is based on the lesser of an appraised value or the purchase price seen on the contract. So maybe using a good analogy or comparison, when you want to get some special insurance on jewelry or some sort of important valuables that you have to get it appraised. That way the insurance company knows how much it's actually worth and will give the applicable coverage in case something happens to it. So going back to the home, we need to know how much it is actually worth, and hopefully there isn't too much of difference between what you paid for and what it's worth. So that's the whole point of an appraisal. An appraisal is typically paid by the client, but it is, of course, necessary as part of the process of getting the financing in place, and typically done in and around the same time you're doing your inspection. There's pretty much a long laundry list of things you need to do in the subject removal period, and that appraisal is one of those items. So
Yeah,
very important to know the difference between those two points, what it's for, and again, why it's important to know what it's worth, so to be able to get your mortgage.
Yeah, and just to clarify for everyone, the client in this situation would be the buyer. So it's typically the buyer that's going to be paying for that appraisal, even though it's the lender that is the one that's probably going to be ordering it. I think that, a lot of the times people ask, like, what happens if an appraisal comes in low? If there is actually a significant difference between what the appraiser has valued it at and what they've actually agreed to purchase it for.
Yeah, I've seen some situations a few years back when the markets were very hot and people were frankly trying to outbid each other just to get the property. And then in this particular example, I did have a client come back winning the bid. Fantastic. But when ordering the appraisal, we found out that it was actually $50,000 less than what they paid for.
Wow.
And we, of course, went back to the appraiser and tried to see if there's any way to get a reevaluation or clarification. But it came back saying that they were pretty solid on that price. That we were given some comparables, and we frankly understood that, unfortunately, our client did overpay for this property. So in this particular case, she had to pay a larger down payment to close that gap, because our mortgage is based on the lesser of what it was worth versus what she paid for. Mm-hmm. So there can be some sticky situations you can get into, but it just shows that you want to be careful on not to overpay for something. Even if you really want it, you want to make sure it's the right thing and the right value at the end of the day.
Right. And I think, part of the process the appraiser goes through is a comparative market analysis. And so if you guys are wondering, how do you avoid overpaying? I mean, you should be working with a good realtor that provides you with data and facts about, why this property is potentially worth this amount of money. So you should be getting that comparative market analysis from your realtor. And I think that's kind of why, John, you were saying, like, a lot of the times it's not going to be different because your realtor should be doing your due diligence to include you on that educational aspect to make sure you're actually paying market value. But sometimes if somebody really wants it, or maybe that wasn't provided, there can be kind of a disconnect. So moving on to pre-sales, more so in pre-sales, we hear this term blanket appraisal. So what is a blanket appraisal?
Yeah, blanket appraisals are basically done at initial setup of our, our financing options with a particular builder. So, give you an example. Royal Bank works with many large developers, and getting in right at the beginning when they're launching their presentation centers and starting to sell their units. Mm-hmm. We'll do one overall appraisal on the building and then their individual units. So to get a very generalized valuation upfront, plus minus, of course, upgrades or any discounts that they may have on the offer. This way we can go back to that same report when a client is seeking financing at that building through the Royal Bank, which makes life a lot easier because, number one, the appraisal is more or less done already. Mm-hmm. And number two, if we do see some changes in valuations, the client is sheltered from that because, again, we've already established that it was worth an appropriate amount at time of their initial offer when they made the contract, so that we can protect again from changes over time, which can certainly happen. If you bought a pre-sale 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and the markets have certainly changed since that time. So right. It's certainly good to work with a lender that has a blanket appraisal on development. And you only typically see that when you're working with large institutions like the Royal Bank, because we do work very closely with builders. So they give the clients some sort of advantage, frankly, to know that we want to have options available.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. And just like making sure that, you know, you guys are aware that, you know, blanket appraisals might not be accessible by every single broker. And so, you know, with everything, yeah, it's important that you have a great real estate team that's on your side and knows their stuff. But in pre-sales, even more so, it's super important that you are working with somebody that has access to resources like blanket appraisals or firm approvals as well. And so, you know, similar to what you were saying before, I guess, where like if the value did change significantly, the risk of somebody not getting that blanket appraisal is that maybe they would have to pay more down payment if the value changed drastically. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we've seen that happen again. For probably a good example are stuff that's completing now, and maybe you didn't get any financing options until, call it 30, 40 days, 30, 60 days out from completion. Mm-hmm. Valuations could be very different than what it was 2-3 years ago. Yeah. So running into situations where our clients need to come up with an additional down payment to close that gap can be very difficult.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Okay, so on the financing side of things, like what do you typically recommend to clients to mitigate risks with regards to appraisals, pre-sales, things like that?
As usual, as I tell my clients, talk to your advisor early. Getting that advice, it certainly doesn't help to talk to someone to get your things in order well in advance. Sure, maybe you have 2 or 3 years to worry about it. And I have many clients that initially tell me, no rush, John, I'll talk to you later on. It's not going to be ready for a while. What I always tell my clients, please, let's just have an opportunity to chat because you never know what's around the corner, and to get your affairs in order so that you can move forward with confidence. One less thing on your plate, and you'll be surprised how fast 2-3 years goes by, and then realize, oh, I wish I talked to John earlier because perhaps there was a change in my situation and we could have taken advantage of options that we had before but no longer available now. So it doesn't hurt to talk to myself, one of my partners, colleagues, to at least take a look at your situation. If we deem it appropriate to say, hey, no rush, so be it. But at least we had looked at it earlier on and had that assessment rather than wait till further down the line and say, oh, I wish I talked to Jon or someone earlier.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting your ducks in order. I was a Boy Scout growing up. Be prepared, do what you can so that you're ready in case the unforeseen comes.
Yeah, definitely. And with regards to appraisals, guys, I mean, you know, my job as a realtor is to be there for you so that we don't have issues with appraisals, and that I'm doing that comparative market analysis and making sure that you're empowered in your decisions. And so that's a really important start as a base with regards to appraisals and avoiding those issues. But then, you know, having Jon here, making sure that you have all your financing in order, and again, for pre-sales, making sure that you know, do everything you can to have that blanket appraisal and those firm approvals in place is super important. But don't forget, he can also help you for resales. So we are your real estate team for everything. I hope this video was really helpful just to clarify some of the basics of appraisals. But if you guys do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. Again, my name is Mariko from BRIDGEWELL Real Estate Group, Jon Chan from RBC, and we're always here for you. So we will keep you guys updated with everything, and we'll see you around. Have a good one, and thanks so much for being here, Jon.
Thanks for having me.